Well, this is very, very special. An incredible guest, somebody who's made me cry more times than I can remember with their brilliant performances and acting. Billy Porter, hello.
Hi, hello. Good. How are you?
I'm really good. How are you? You've come in from New York City. You jetted
Red
in.
eye, jet setting, international traveler.
Look at you. Look at you. You look as fresh as a daisy. It's lovely to meet you.
Well, thank you. Lovely to meet you as well.
I'm dying to get into this. So I've got so many questions about your life, your brilliant acting, the awards. You're a trailblazer. But we're going to do it through your favourite songs. So this is your Pride playlist. So, Billy Porter, what should we go for? Track number one.
Well, okay, here's what I'm going to say. I am a recording artist myself, and we're going to talk about myself first.
Okay.
We're going to start with me.
I'd love to.
I have a new album out called Black Mona Lisa. And I'm so proud of it. I've been in the business for over 30 years, and this is my 5th album, and it's my return to the mainstream music industry. And it's the first time that I've been able to write, produce, and curate my sound where I come from. I grew up in the church, the Pentecostal church. My roots are R&B and soul and gospel and, house, dance, all of that. And I really, really am excited about this piece. So I have a new single out. Well, first of all, Children charted over here on BBC Radio, and also Baby Was a Dancer charted number 1 actually on Radio 2 last year. And so right now I have a single in the market called Leap, and I love it because it's I'm very much a enlightenment kind of person, a hopeful, my work is always very hopeful and hopefully encouraging and inspiring people to be their best selves.
Yeah. These songs that you've written down as your My Pride playlist, are they a journey through your life, through your kind of pivotal moments?
Here's what I'm going to say to that. I've done so many of these playlists as a journey through my life. Not necessarily.
Okay.
Yes, and maybe sort of.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Because I wanted to, with this one, I wanted to pick things that were also appropriate for here.
Yes.
I'm in the UK, so I also wanted to pick things that reminded me of the UK. Things that came out of the UK back, and particularly in the 80s when I was growing up. Mm-hmm. So I have some songs like that. This next one is, there's a lot of obvious. This next one for me is Diana Ross.
Right.
I'm Coming Out. I mean,
we could just end that there, couldn't we?
I mean, I remember when it came out, how special it was to me because I was actually coming out.
Yeah.
And the alignment that Diana Ross made as an ally for us, particularly Black queer men, Black queer people in general, was very special. And continues to be.
You were coming out at this particular time when that record was released. You're in the States. You're a person of colour. I'm guessing it must have been a really kind of quite tough, bleak landscape.
Yeah, it was difficult. The AIDS crisis was on the rise, and there was such joy in it. There was such celebration, and I think one of the things that we forget, or is easy to forget in times of crisis, is to remember the joy, remember to live, remember to celebrate life anyway, because that's what gets us to the other side of the trauma.
How did you get through that part? Was it a case of like, going out, dancing, and trying to forget some of the stuff that was going on?
Well, it wasn't about well, I guess
Or dealing with
there's
it.
a little bit of sort of, weekend. Let's just not worry about it. The clubs were, I call it gay church, and it was a place of community, and it was, and still is, a place of healing. All are welcome in the club. And music is a universal language, and music is, has a healing energy and property to it innately. That's why I love it so much. That's why, singing, the voice is the first gift. That was the gift from on high. I started singing in the church when I was 5.
And did you realise back then, did people say, wow, you've got a great voice? When did you realise you had something?
No, I popped out and I started singing, and people knew that there was something special around it. Yeah, they did. They called me Little Preacher Man, which didn't work out so well for them.
Why is that?
I took another route.
You did it your own way.
I did it my way. I didn't stay in the church. I broke away from the homophobic dogma of that, and yet who I am as a human being, my compassion, my empathy, leading with love, all comes from that space. And so, I would never have had it any other way. Also, in the 5th grade, I knew I could sing, but I didn't know the magnitude of how amazing the gift really was until 5th grade, and I was incessantly bullied. And I signed up for the talent show, and I won, and the bullying stopped. And that's when I realized the power of it. I didn't realize that there was power in my singing until then.
Let's play another one of your wonderful songs on your Pride playlist. What should we go for?
What should we go for? Pride, A Deeper Love.
CNC Music Factory?
Yes,
Clavillis
CNC
and
Music
Cole.
Factory, Clavillis and Cole. And, that I had just moved to New York City. I think it was around 90.
Yeah, 91, yeah.
And I moved to New York City from drama school on December 27th, 1990, to be in the original cast of Miss Saigon.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow.
And this was the anthem that was playing in the clubs. And it has never gone away. And all of I love all the remixes. I love all the remakes. I do listen to this one every year. I do pull this one out every year.
And can I ask you so you arrived in New York City, what was the landscape like? What was the scene like? Were you out? Were you
I was always out.
Right.
I was always out. Saturday, it was interesting because Cameron McIntosh, who you in England know very well.
Yeah.
Amazing producer, businessman. And, up until that time, the theater schedule, Broadway and the West End, was always about having Mondays off. 8 shows a week, 2 shows on Wednesday, 2 shows on Saturday, Sunday matinee, and then Monday off. He had the business acumen idea, because everything was dark on Sundays, to make Miss Saigon be the only show.
So you would have done the show on Monday?
Yes, we did the show on Monday.
Yeah.
Right. So we had okay, so we had shows on Sunday. It was brilliant. at the time because every other show on Broadway was dark.
So yours is the one ticket.
So ours was the one
Yeah.
ticket to get, and we had Mondays off, which meant Saturday night. And we was at the club, all night long into the morning, from the Roxy to the Sound Factory that then became Twilo, right up 10th Avenue in New York City, from 18th to 28th. You just migrated.
And that's fascinating for you to say that, because it's kind of like you lived the life of the character that you went on to become in Pose. Well, you certainly lived through that era. You were the perfect person.
Yeah, I mean, that was what was so special about the part for me. When I was called to audition, for those of you out in Radio Land who know the show, I was called to audition for what would become the female dance teacher.
Wow. Okay.
And I was like, this isn't the part.
Yeah.
For me. Like, if you're gonna create a show about this world and this culture, I lived it, and it would be a waste of time for both of us if I weren't immersed in that part of the storytelling.
Mm-hmm.
And Ryan Murphy thought I was right, thank goodness, and wrote Pose and developed the character of Pray Tell for me.
For you.
Yeah,
That's
it was
fascinating.
It was not in the script
That's
until I showed
incredible.
up, which is a really amazing thing.
But I suppose that makes sense because that character is so you.
Yes.
It's almost like it's been written as an extension of you.
Yeah, there is that extension part. Life imitates art. And I am acting. It isn't me.
Mm-hmm.
It is make believe. And it's always nice when you can play characters that are close to you.
Let's play another song, and
Yes.
then can I ask you a million questions about Pose? Is that okay?
Sure.
So what do you fancy next? So it's Billy Porter on my playlist.
Recently, I found an artist that I didn't know about by the name of Carl Bean. And, turns out he was an African-American recording artist who recorded a song called Born This Way in the 70s, right? Which was 78, I believe. And, the lyrics were about being out. Sort of like a dance house track. And he became the founder, he became a minister and founded a queer-friendly church. Essentially a queer black church.
Wow.
What was the name again?
It was AIDS. It was an AIDS foundation, but I can't remember the name of his church.
He founded a church in response to the AIDS crisis and started one of the first organizations for healthcare, particularly for black gay men.
Just tell me his name again.
Carl Bean.
Okay, let's listen to that.
And this is Born This Way. I actually have been executive producing a documentary that is in the market soon to come. This is Born This Way.
Just picking up on what you said a moment ago about being a person of colour and the church and the AIDS thing. Did you lose many people back in the day? How bad? Can I ask you?
Yeah.
How bad it got?
It was really bad. Very traumatizing. I would say for about a decade, I went to at least 4 to 6 funerals a month, at least. Memorials, was very traumatizing. I'm still traumatized. I think the entire generation of us still is. I remember when Pose came on the air, you know, I got lots of calls from people who realized, oh, I never even processed this, you know, because just speaking in America, you know, true to American form, in 96 when the antiretroviral drugs came out, it was just as if it never happened and everybody just moves on.
Wow.
And nobody talks about it and nobody processes anything. And so I think, well, I know that a lot of that processing was able to actually be ignited through Pose.
I know so many younger people here, living here, who've seen Pose and have been educated on it because they didn't know. And Pose did it so brilliantly. It wasn't just
Thank you.
It wasn't just the storyline of what was going on at the time, but it was the after effect and the drinking and the drugs and everything that came with trying to numb the feeling, I suppose, of it was like a war zone, really, wasn't it?
It was a war zone. But also, too, the choice for joy, anyway. The choice to live anyway. We cannot discount that. It's a real lesson as to how to live. You know, nobody has an easy life. You know, nothing is promised. And yet, the human spirit requires life.
Let's play another song.
I'm going to go right to then Gaga's Born This Way.
Okay.
Because she has said that her Born This Way was inspired by Carl Bean's Born This Way. A lot of people don't really know that, but...
So there's a correlation.
So there is a correlation. And when I heard it, I didn't... You know, that's the thing, growing up in the church. You know, this sort of like idea that we choose it. Would I choose being gay? Now I would. Yes, I wouldn't have it any other way. But in my early years, you know, what you have to face, you know, it's like speaking to the trans community. You know, it's like, you think I would choose to live in a world where many don't even think I should exist and sort of behave that way against me? You think I would really choose that if it wasn't real? If I wasn't born this way? I'm born like this. I do not have a choice. And the courage that it takes to stand in the fullness of that is so inspiring to me. You know, I have lived a version of it and continue to live a version of it. And I support everybody's true humanity, whoever and however they are.
We have lots of conversations on this show, and a fair few people have said that the state of play 30 years ago, you know, I came out in 1996 and it was a totally different landscape to now.
You had the pill.
Yeah, exactly.
You came out with the pill.
I came out with the pill. But the situation that trans people are going through now reminds me a lot of the criticism, the fear, the hatred, the clickbaitable news stories that was going on back then. Yeah. Would you equate the two?
Absolutely. And I go to history. Those who don't know their history are doomed to repeat it. I don't know what is being taught historically here in the UK, in Europe, but I know that unless you seek it out in America, queer history is not taught. in school. Well, history is not taught in America. The real history is not taught in America at all. Anyway, and therefore, here we are again. It's by design that our government in particular in the U.S. has stripped public education of pretty much everything. It's by design that the electorate then is undereducated. And that's what creates followers who can get caught up in the cult of personality that we have seen emerge over the last 8 years. There is hope. There's a new kind of hope that has sprouted up in the last week. And her name is Kamala Harris. I have not ever in my life, anywhere in the world, felt safe as a Black queer man at all, ever. Every moment that I begin to feel that there might be some modicum of safety, the rug is pulled out from under us. What I mean by that, first Black president, 8 years. Who comes after him?
Yeah.
And yet we persist. We must continue to move forward.
You could say, and I will say, that Pose is a history lesson in itself.
It is.
I know this for a fact, and I know trans people who've seen Pose, and through watching it, it started them on their journey.
Yes.
I hadn't seen anything like that really until, with 2019.
Not with people of color.
People of color, people playing them, trans people playing trans people.
Yeah.
It's a trailblazer of a show.
It is.
You must be so proud.
I am very proud. I really
tell me about when you hear people like me talking to you about the effect of that show.
It is above me. I made a choice early. Art has the power to heal. It has the power to transform. Toni Morrison speaks of it. I want to read a quote by her that I should probably know by heart by now because it is my favorite, but I always have a tendency to mess it up, and I don't want to. But she says, this is precisely the time when artists go to work. There's no time for fear. Take two. This is precisely the time when artists go to work. There's no time for despair, no place for self-pity, no need for silence, no room for fear. We speak, we write, we do language. This is how civilizations heal. She was an author, she was a writer, but it applies to all things that are art to me. And I made a definitive choice in my late 20s, early 30s to dedicate my life and my art to healing. Something outside of myself. Show business can be very egoic. People can get lost. We can get lost in our egos and in our fabulous. And when there is a intention, everything I do, every job I have, every word I speak, every song I sing, there's intention behind it. And the intention is to heal.
How difficult was it for you guys filming let me take you to season 3 of Pose. Every episode I had a breakdown. because it was just so tough, but so brilliantly acted. And I wondered, was that traumatic for you guys?
Yeah.
To play those parts?
It was traumatic.
Revisit?
We didn't know it was. Until, I don't think anybody really knew how traumatic it was until season 3. Because that happened right in the middle of COVID. So we started, well, I'll just speak for myself. I started and we got through half of episode 1, and then we were shut down for 9 months. And in that 9 months, I did a lot of soul searching, a lot of trauma therapy, and realized that I was being traumatized every time I went to work, re-traumatized. And at that point, I had not come out as HIV positive to anybody. Mm-hmm. So here I was on television playing a character who was dying of HIV, and I have HIV, and I wasn't saying anything to anybody about it.
Do you mind me asking, is that why you decided to come out at that particular time?
Yes, it is, ultimately. I mean, I was going to do it anyway. And it became necessary for me to do it earlier than what I had planned. I was writing a memoir, and I was going to, disclose, as we say, in October in my book when it was released in October. And my, brilliant publicist stepped in March when I was speaking about it, and literally was like, you have to do it now.
This is the time.
This is the time, because unfortunately, and it's not fair, but if Pray Tell dies of AIDS on television in the summer, and then you, Billy, don't come out as HIV positive yourself till October, the cynical press will come after you for it.
Were you scared of the reaction?
Not at that point. I'd held it for 14 years. No, I was not scared.
And what was the reaction?
I don't really know. That's not my business. Other people's reaction to me and my work and the choices that I make are not my business. If one is to remain truthful to themselves, none of that is my business. I actually don't care. And I have this conversation all the time with the people in my life, family members, my team. This social media thing is really interesting because it's made people think that their opinion matters.
Yes.
And it doesn't at all. And my mantra is, I do not now, nor will I ever adjudicate my life or humanity in sound bites on social media. And I mean it. And I've had to go through, and I've gone through the ringer. The children have tried to drag me, take me through the ringer. It's all right. It's all good, because I am over here being the most truthful and honest version of myself always, period. And I think that's actually better.
You're amazing.
Like I said, everything I do is intentional. And the intention is to give the world a big bear hug and remind us of how to love each other. And inside of showing up for each other like that with loving kindness and compassion and hope, we can and will change the world for good.
Billy Porter, you're an inspiration, you're a trailblazer, and my life is more enlightened after meeting you and spending time with you.
Thank you
so much.
Thank you.
We love you.
Love you too.
Virgin Radio.